Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buchheit, the minister of this congregation. We are so glad you have chosen to join us in worship. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm that we need not think alike to love alike, meaning that we are a faith community woven together in shared covenant rather than conformity of belief. This is the covenant that binds our congregation. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. If that sounds like the kind of community you've been seeking, please see our website, uuamherst.org, and get to know us better. We begin our worship together by lighting the flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, that embodies the light of reason and the search for truth and meaning, the warmth of friendship and community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more justice and compassion to a hurting world. If you have a chalice or simple candle at home, please prepare to light it as we light our shared chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. As a people of faith, we aspire to live our principles of justice, equity, and compassion, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence. One of the ways we've been mindful of our impact on the earth and the legacy of appropriation that has disproportionately benefited white people has been to acknowledge the indigenous people, those called the neutrals and the Haudenosaunee, for whom the land where our church rests was once home. We acknowledge that we have benefited greatly from that which belonged to others, and in a very real sense belongs only to itself. May we be good stewards of the land and teach ourselves and others to live in right relationship with the living earth. The great blue ship we call Earth, this blue and green vessel we call home, has sailed round the sun once more. But this journey has been like no other. The storms that have risen above us in towering waves of angry water and crashed into our lives were like none before. The fury of those storms have touched every life from every corner and every shore of this planet, and have taken too many away from us. Too many. The waters drench us with the truth that every living being is connected to every other. We sail together or not at all. Let us hold fast to the mast, be it friends, family, neighbors, kind strangers, or the beauty of nature. For the wild seas shall subside, and the winds will be calmed, and we shall look forward to a brighter journey around the golden sun.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Each week we include in our worship service a time for all ages. Whether it takes the form of a story or shared images or some other shape, this time is meant to engage all of us at all ages and stages of life. This part of the service is an integral part of our worship as a multi-generational community of faith.
Good morning, UU Amherst and friends. Today's time for all ages comes from the Hebrew tradition. So it was that when the Hasidic pilgrims vied for those among them who had endured the most suffering, who was the most entitled to complain, the Tzaddik told them the story of the sorrow tree. In a small village in Poland, there lived a wise rabbi. His followers loved him and came often to tell him of their woes. After a while, the rabbi grew tired of hearing each one claim that their lot in life was so much more difficult to bear than their neighbors. They were constantly asking, "Why doesn't he have to suffer as I do? Why doesn't she have a nagging husband? Or why doesn't he have a lazy wife? Why doesn't she have back trouble? And why don't his children still live at home contributing nothing to the family's income?" On and on it went until the rabbi came up with a plan. He sent out word that there was to be a new holiday celebrated. "Bring your sorrows and troubles," he announced. "Bring them in a bag with your name on it and hang the bag from the great tree in the center of the village. All will be allowed to exchange troubles and to go home with those of your neighbors rather than your own." The villagers were excited, imagining how much easier their lives would be from that day on. When the day came, they assembled beneath the tree with bags in hand. With bits of rope, they tied their bags to the low branches of the tree so that all might inspect them. "Now," said the rabbi in a very official voice, "if you will all move about inspecting the bags, you may choose someone else's troubles to take home, thus freeing yourselves from your own." The villagers rushed at the tree and began grabbing and peering into the bags, one after the other, around and around, around and around the tree. Finally, quite tired out and feeling both foolish and wiser, they each sought out their own bags and walked home. The rabbi smiled. It was just as he had hoped. The villagers had seen the sorrows of others as they really are, and had decided to stick with their own lots in life because, at least, they were familiar. Who hasn't imagined that their own problems are worse than those of others? Imagine that this story takes place in our community. Walk around the tree and look into each other's bags. Would this story end the way the folktale does? What about our blessings? Imagine that you put your blessings in a bag. What would the bag contain? Would you trade them for someone else's?
What a year this has been. I've heard it said that today is actually the 366th day of March 2020. Kind of an endless, dreary, forced to stay inside time. For many of us, that's not too far from the truth. But although it felt like a year-long Groundhog's Day, it also brought unprecedented change and loss to our lives. Like the villagers in our story this morning, we might long to set down our own grief and despair and pick up another's, certain that it will be a lighter burden. Yet, once we have glimpsed the depth of their pain, we realize that there is no hierarchy of sorrow. The loss of my loved ones is not so different from your loss of a job to support your family. It's all loss. Each of us feels loss deeply, although we may express it differently. When we recognize this truth, we are able to take up our own burdens again. Today we honor the passage of time, the bearing of burdens, and the resiliency of the beloved community. Even as we've been separated from friends and family, we have grown in intimacy through the use of online technology. Being invited into one another's living rooms and home offices has helped to humanize us. I had no idea you had so many books, or that you collected plush toy animals, or how much you love a warm cuppa. I hope we are changed by this year apart. I hope we continue to read aloud to one another and discuss important ideas. What a loss it will be if, upon resuming in-person gatherings, we revert to talking about trifles. We have become courageous this year, letting others see our pain and letting them love us. That has been my greatest learning. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. The first 5 years of our shared ministry, I knew I could love you. In this 6th year, I've experienced what it means to let you love me back. You have been so generous in your love and support of my family as we experienced the greatest sorrow and the greatest joy, literally within weeks of each other. I am filled with gratitude and a commitment to keep this love growing. We can only be stronger moving forward as we are mindful to build on this strong foundation of love, this heart connection. And so I am caught up in a reciprocity of hope. I call it a reciprocity of hope because it is the result of our connectivity, our willingness to be vulnerable, to ask for help when we need it, and to offer help when we have the capacity. A couple of weeks ago, inspired by Brooke Smith and Madeline Klepper's storybook, The Keeper of Wild Words, we identified our own special wild words: connectivity, reciprocity, and generosity. These intertwined relational words define and guide us. Deep connection leads to reciprocity, which in turn leads to generosity. So even as we pause to remember and to grieve, we know we are held in a love that will not let us go. The universal love that assures us all that we are worthy, all springing from the same source and sharing the same destiny. Although we cannot trade our sorrows for another person's, we can share them. Rather than adding to our burden, shared sorrows lessen the emotional load for all. Our society is not very good at making space for grief. It makes people nervous. Surely, after a couple of days for funeral arrangements and maybe another week to settle affairs, one should be able to resume the fullness of life. That is the expectation, even if it is left unspoken. So, we try to rush through our grieving and rise to the demands of life, only to discover that our bodies and hearts know nothing of this attempt to hurry things along. Weeks, months, sometimes even years later, the grief takes us down like a giant wave, a tsunami of tears, leaving us gasping and shaken. Our sorrow will not be ignored or subdued into rational behavior. Grief is all-consuming. Tears become our food and drink. We stop speaking of it, not wanting to bore well-intentioned friends who inquire as to how we are doing, willing us to be okay and not pull them into the discomfort of bearing witness. But grief left unspoken becomes too heavy to bear. In her poem, The Thing Is, Ellen Bass describes grief as an obesity and a tropical heat that thickens the air. She writes, "The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief. You think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again. Hold life like a face between your palms and say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again. That is what each of us in our own time must do, again and again. As we retrieve our own bag of sorrows from the communal tree, holding one another in loving care and understanding, we begin to heal. We discover that grief is simply love with nowhere to go. And we find places to give that love away. Our connectivity and reciprocity lead us to this generosity of spirit. We hold one another in tender care, igniting the spark of hope that becomes a prayer.
Well, I'm sitting here in silence, sending people smiles and realizing when we send out love, it keeps on rising. So I choose to close my eyelids to send positive vibes into every living being, from the ocean to the skies. And as I look at all the crisis, I realize that I just can send my love and prayers that will make it through this virus. To me, this is all priceless, to transform all the violence through sacrifice and trying, sitting on this cushion silent. May all beings be happy, peaceful and non-violent. May not one being suffer in their minds, even the tyrants. May all souls find alignment with their hands, their hearts and minds. And may all of us keep walking and persevere in these times with love.
Ooh, I'm sending prayers out to you. I'm sending prayers out to you. I'm sending prayers out to you. Prayers out to you, sending prayers out to you, sending prayers out to you. Oh, sending prayers out to you, sending prayers out to you, sending prayers out to you. Oh, sending prayers out to you. Sending prayers out to you. Sending prayers out to you.
We'll now engage in a ritual of grief and gratitude, creating a container to honor the fullness of our lives, the joys and sorrows, the hope and despair. We begin our rite by creating a circle by honoring the elements. Remember that you are water. Cry, cleanse, flow, let go. Remember that you are fire. Burn, tame, adapt, ignite. Remember that you are air. Observe, breathe, focus, decide. Remember that you are earth. Ground, give, build, heal. Remember that you are spirit. Connect, listen, know, be still. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is real for all of us. whether we are touched by it directly or indirectly. Some of us know people who have the virus, and its impact is getting closer as we learn of second cousins and friends of friends who have died of COVID-19. This morning, we share a ritual to recognize deaths due to COVID-19 and those who have died of other causes during the pandemic, to note the particular pain of grieving in isolation, as well as to lift up gratitude for all those on the front lines, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, janitors, domestic workers. Here we have a candle. You may wish to find your own candle to light with us. Will you join me now in lighting this candle of grief and gratitude? I invite you to join me in saying, "We light this candle." Then I will say a few words and hold silence as I invite you to speak aloud the names on your heart. We light this candle. In honor of all those working on the front lines in hospitals, nursing homes, grocery stores, and gas stations, I invite you now to name those you know on the front lines. We light this candle to send our love to those dying in isolation, especially those who we know and those who are loved by those we know. I invite you now to name those who you know of who have died of the COVID-19 virus and other causes during this year of pandemic. We light this candle to send our love to all those grieving deaths and losses of all causes. I invite you now to name those who you know who are grieving. We light this candle in recognition of the enormity of this pandemic's impact on each of us, on those we love, on everyone, especially those already challenged by poverty, racism, transphobia, ableism, xenophobia, and more. We light this candle in grief, in honor, in recognition, and most of all, in love. Our rite is completed. We open the circle with the words with which we created it. Remember that you are water. Cry, cleanse, flow, let go. Remember that you are fire. Burn, tame, adapt, ignite. Remember that you are air. Observe, breathe, focus, decide. Remember that you are earth. Ground, give, build, heal. Remember that you are spirit. Connect, listen, know, be still.
All this joy Such is Spirit, such is love, city of joy, city of sorrow, city of promise, city of pain. Such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love, world of joy, world of sorrow, world of promise, world of pain. All is joy, all is sorrow, all is promise, all is pain. Such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love, such is spirit, such is love.
Thank you for joining us in worship today. Please see the credits at the end of this service for information about the music and other worship elements. And do take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link, or text your gift to 833-987-1968. Your generosity in online giving is the virtual equivalent of passing the offering plate, and is in addition to your pledges of ongoing financial support. Thank you in advance for your generosity. We close this time of worship as we extinguish our chalice with these familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Reverend Jason Cook provides this benediction to bless the time we have shared together. Remember to love. When there is so much more than you can take in, more than you can see or feel or hear or hold, remember to love. Where there is too much, the voices too strident or too loud or discordant, when you don't know where to turn, remember to love. When there is not enough touch, not enough of what we need or want or dream of, remember to love. for our greatest cataclysms, our deepest worries, our overwhelming fears are only managed by remembering to love and be loved in return.